Hi guys, welcome to Algebra Bootcamp Day 2. Just as a reminder, so we've already done Day 1, that was yesterday. Today is Day 2, we're still going to be working on Category 1, which is Algebra and Modeling. And here's just another reminder of our calendar for December. Another reminder is for your homework, please make sure that you are completing at least 10 problems every single day. So you should have already done 10 problems last night. Make sure that you work on 10 problems today as well. Homework will be graded on both completion and correctness. So you have to do it and do your best on it. And you will receive a grade both in research and in geometry. Let's go ahead and get started right away. So here we go. Emily. Hi, Emily. So Emily has a gift certificate for $10 to use at an online store. She can purchase songs for $1 each or episodes of TV for $3 each. She wants to spend exactly $10. Create an equation to show the relationship between the number of songs, X, Emily can purchase, and the number of episodes of TV shows, Y, she can purchase. All right, cool. Lots of useful information. So she can only spend $10. We know that songs are $1 each, and TV episodes are $3 each. We know that songs are represented by X. We know that TV shows are represented by Y. And so here we go, my equation, because I have to create an equation for this, it would be 1x plus 3y equals 10. And we can simplify that 1, because remember, anytime you have a 1 in front of a variable, we just simplify that to the variable by itself. So x plus 3y equals 10. That would be my answer, and I would put it in my box. All right. Now, I forgot to mention this before we got started, but throughout this video, what I want you to do is when I kind of put the next question on, like when I flip to the next question, pause the video, read it, try it on your own first, spend 1, 2, 3 minutes trying it on your own, and then press play again, and then I'll walk you through it. That way you get the chance to try it on your own, see what you know, see what you don't know, and then I'll show you how to do it correctly. Another thing is that I want to make sure that you guys are watching this and paying attention. So throughout this entire video, I'm going to ask you guys 5 questions, random questions that don't even have to do with algebra. And you're going to click, there's a link below in the description. You're going to click on that link. As a matter of fact, go ahead and do it right now. Click on that link. And it's going to be a Google form that you're going to fill out and answer those 5 questions. And that's just for me to make sure that you are paying attention and that you watch the whole thing. So they're not going to be hard questions, but just keep that tab open with the Google form. That way, while you're watching this video, you can just switch to that tab and answer those 5 questions. But anyways, back to this. So this was question number 1. Let's go ahead and go on to the second one. Grace and her brother need $400 to go to band camp. Their parents have agreed to help them earn money by paying them $25 each time they mow the lawn and $10 for each hour they babysit their younger brother. They will have to do a combination of both chores to earn the money. Select the equation that represents the number of lawns they can mow, M, and the hours they can babysit, B, to earn $400. Cool. So they're going to earn $400. Okay, we know that 25 is for mowing the lawn and 10 is for babysitting. We know that the lawn mowing is M and the babysitting is B. So very similar to the previous problem, this is going to be 25M plus 10B equals 400. Easy peasy. Not too bad so far. Let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Jesse's bus ride to school is 5 minutes more than 2/3 the time of Robert's bus ride. Which graph shows the possible times of Jesse's and Robert's bus rides? Okay, so this one's a little more challenging because now we don't have an equation necessarily, we have a whole graph that we have to do. But what do we know? We know that Jesse's bus ride is 5 minutes more than 2/3 the time of Robert's bus ride. Okay, so I'm going to call Jesse's bus ride J. And let's call Robert's bus ride R. I'm just going to reread that one more time. Jesse's bus ride is 5 minutes more. So more, I know that's going to be a plus sign. It's 5 minutes more than 2/3 the time of Robert. So again, Jesse is 5 minutes more, so 5 plus 2/3 of Robert's bus ride. So here's my equation. J equals 5 plus 2/3 R. And I'm just going to rewrite that because we have some graphs, and these graphs are linear. So I can rewrite this using y equals mx plus b. So this would be J equals 2/3 R plus 5. And in this case, my slope is 2/3. And my y-intercept is 5. So I'm going to look at my options, and I already see that I can cross out A and I can cross out D because both of these, the y-intercept wouldn't be 5. This is the x-intercept. So they don't have the right y-intercept. B and C are good because they both start at 5. And then I need to use the slope. I know that the slope is 2/3. So I need to test each option and see which one gives me 2/3. So I'm going to start with B. Let's see, I see a perfect point right here and another one over here. All right, and then I'm looking at my rise and my run. This is going by 5s. So my rise is 10. This is also going by 5s. So my run is 5, 10, 15, 15. So m equals 10 over 15, which I can simplify. If I divide both top and bottom by 5, I get 2/3, which is exactly what we wanted. So B is my answer. Now for C, in case you tried that one, perfect point here. And let's see, 1, 2, 3. This kind of looks like a perfect point. This is 5, 10, 15, and 10. This is backwards. So this rise over run for this one would be 15 over 10. And when you simplify that, you get 3 over 2. So one of them was 2 over 3 and the other one was 3 over 2, but what we wanted was 2 over 3. So that's why B is correct. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask you question number 1 to fill out in the Google form. So in the Google form that's in the description below, the question I have for you is, what is the color of the sky on a clear sunny day? Go ahead and fill out your answer on the Google form for question number 1. What is the color of the sky on a clear sunny day? All right, moving on to the next problem. Here we go. A rectangle has a perimeter of 64. Let x equal the width of the rectangle. Let y equal the area of the rectangle. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Which equation can be used to find the area of the rectangle? So I'm talking about a rectangle. I don't see a rectangle. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Always draw it out so that you can visualize it. All right. So x is the width. Okay, so that's my width. And we know that, okay, there's also the perimeter is 64. So let me, for now, I'm just going to call this L for length. I don't know the length, I don't know the width, but I know that the perimeter is 64. So the perimeter is when you add all the sides. which means that the perimeter for this one would be, if that's x, the other side is also x, and then down here, these would be, both of these would be L. So the perimeter would be 2x plus 2L. Okay, that's great. I also know that all of that is going to equal 64. So 64 equals 2x plus 2L. All right. Then it also tells me that y is the area. Well, area is length times width, right? But okay, they're telling me to call this y. So I'm going to say y equals L times width. But again, I don't really know the value of either of those things. Okay. However, what I do know is that if I want to keep things in terms of x, so all I want to see is y and x, because look at all the answer choices. All of these answer choices have y and they have x, but they don't have any l's, they don't have any w's, right? So why don't I do this? I'm going to rewrite the perimeter equation. I'm going to rewrite it and I'm going to isolate the L. I'm going to try to get the L all by itself. And I'll show you why I'm going to do that. So to get L all by itself, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So this would be 64 minus 2x equals 2L. And then to get L all by itself, I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. Now, when I divide by 2 on both sides, I divide everything by 2. So 64 divided by 2 is 32. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 32 minus x. That's the length. The length is 32 minus x. So I can replace that in my diagram. And now let's go back to this situation. I need to write the area formula. Well, area is length times width, which means that the area would be 32 minus x times x. That's completely based on my diagram. I know that the width is represented by x, and I know that the length is represented by 32 minus x. So now I'm just going to distribute and multiply to get my final answer. So x times 32, well, that's 32x. X times negative x, that's negative x squared. And it looks like they have it written in the opposite order, so I'm going to rewrite this. This would be y equals negative x squared plus 32x, which means answer choice D would be my answer. Now, notice that took a lot of organization. I had to draw my diagram. I needed to realize that there were no L's in the problem, so I needed to make everything in terms of X. So this one was definitely what I would say a very challenging type of problem for CED 1.2, which is what we're working on, right? So like all of this has been CED 1.2. I would say this one, the first one we did was pretty easy. Second one was also very easy. Third one kind of kicked it up a notch. It was a little bit more challenging, but this one's like a real challenge problem. Okay, another one, let's see. Maya deposited $5,500 in a bank account. The money earns interest annually, and the interest is deposited back into her account. We kind of talked about this one day, where like if you put money in an account and it earns interest, that means that it grows. Maya uses an online calculator to determine the amount of money she will have in the account at the end of each year. The amount of money that Maya will have in her account at the end of each year, up to 6 years, is shown in the table below. Enter an equation that models the amount of money Y Maya will have in the account at the end of T years. Okay, so they're telling you what variables to use. And now we got to figure out what type of function this is. Is it going to be linear, exponential, something, or something else. There's already a little bit of a clue, is that there's interest. And we've talked about this, interest is usually a percentage. And we know that percentages are going to be exponential. But just to be sure, there's something we can do to check if it actually is exponential. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom, 6,567.29, and I'm going to divide by the next number down. So I'm just going to take my calculator out, and I'm going to divide. So 6,567.29 divided by 6376.01. I get 1.02999999, so I'm going to round up to 1.03. Then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to divide by the next number. So now I'm going to do 6,376.01 divided by 6,190.30. And I get 1.03 again. Do it one more time. I should be getting the same number, but let's find out. So now I'm going to do 6,190.3 divided by 6,009.99. And sure enough, when you divide, you get 1.03 again. So clearly, since I divided to get those answers, what that actually means is that this is growing. So this is actually, the money is growing by 1.03 every year. Okay, so every year that money earns more and more multiplied by 1.03. So definitely exponential. And remember that exponential functions are y equals ab to the power of x. Now in this case, instead of x, they're telling us to use t. So make sure that we use the right variables. So this would be ab to the power of t. A represents the starting amount and B represents the growth rate. So this final answer would be y equals, starting amount is 5,665, okay, times B, the growth rate, which is 1.03, to the power of t. That would be my final answer for this problem. So this requires you to really remember, okay, we got to remember our exponential functions and how to write them. Y equals ab to the power of x or t or whatever variable they tell you to use. Next one, now we're moving on to A-REI 3.5. So different types of problems. These are all going to be systems of equations, and specifically we're looking for equivalent systems. So which system of equations has the same solution as the system below? Couple ways you could do this. You could actually solve the system and figure out the coordinate point of the solution, but that would take you a lot of time. So instead, what we want to do is see if there's any patterns, see if there's any way that I can go from this system to one of these here below. So we're trying to see, is there any way that I can get from that one to the rest? So let's see. I see some 5s. Okay, I see that maybe this might be a factor of the top equation. So it's possible, but let's find out. What would happen? Okay, in order to turn this into negative 5x, I would have to multiply this whole thing by negative 5. Well, if I multiply it by negative 5, I would get negative 5x minus 15y equals negative 30, which is not what you get in the rest of that equation. So A is automatically out. Okay, now while I'm here, let me check C, because C does match what I got here. So the top equation for C matches. This is good. But now we got to check the bottom equation. So is there a way to get this bottom equation from something on the top, or from something from the original problem? Well, I don't think that that would be a multiple. It doesn't look like I would be able to multiply any of those original equations to get 5x plus y equals 10. But remember that you can have equivalent systems by addition or subtraction. But if I add these together, straight down, 1x plus 4x is 5x, 3 minus 8, that's negative 5y, and 6 plus 4 is 10. So you can do that, but that doesn't match entirely. So unfortunately, C seems to be incorrect as well. But hey, look, I noticed that in D, what happens? D matches entirely. D, the top one matches with the one that we got before by multiplying by negative 5, and the bottom one matches with what we got from adding. So D is correct. The top equation was a factor of the top equation times negative 5, and then the bottom one was the sum of the two equations, the two original equations. So remember, you can get equivalent equations or systems by multiplying by the same number straight across, dividing by the same number straight across, adding the top two and bottom equations together, or subtracting the top and bottom equations from each other. All right, so D. Next problem. A system of equations is shown below. Which method eliminates one of the variables? Okay, so if I wanted to solve this by elimination, I would need to have opposites of the same numbers. So in order to cancel them out, they need to be opposites of the same number. Now, there's nothing that matches so far, so you would need to multiply by something in order to get opposites. So let's take a look at answer choice A. Multiply A by negative 1/3 and add the result. Okay. If I multiplied that by negative 1/3, I would get negative 5/3 x minus 3y equals negative 4. And then I keep the bottom one the same, so this would be 4x minus 3y equals 8. Well, unfortunately, this doesn't work because these are not opposite, they're the same. So those will not cancel out, so A does not work. B. Multiply equation B by 3 and then add the equations together, okay? If I multiplied this by 3, I would get 12x minus 9y equals 24. Top equation stays the same. And take a look at that. That definitely cancels because I have a positive 9 and then I have a negative 9. So these cancel out. And then when you add, you end up with 17x equals 36. So this is correct. If you tried the other two, you would see that they would never be able to cancel out. You can try it out and it would not work out. C, B is the only one that gives you opposites. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna ask you guys question number 2 for the Google form that you're filling out at the moment. So go ahead, if you haven't clicked on it yet, click on the link below and open up that Google form. And now we're gonna answer question number 2. Question number 2 is, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? You can answer whatever you like the best. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? That's question number 2. All right, back to the problem. The math club sells candy bars and drinks during football games. 60 candy bars and 110 drinks will sell for $265. 120 candy bars and 90 drinks will sell for $270. How much does each candy bar sell for? Okay, so we got to make equations out of this. 60 candy bars, let's, X will be candy and Y will be drinks. So this would be 60X plus 110Y equals 256. And here we have 120X plus 90Y equals 270. And we want to know how much each candy bar sells. So we want to know the value of X. Now, in order to get the value of X, we should try to eliminate Y. So I would take a look, let's see. I have 110 and 90. I can't really think of a number that's going to be easy to multiply by that would allow these to cancel out with each other. So I could try, but that seems like it might actually be harder. But instead, I notice right away that the 60 and the 120 cancel out very easily because I could multiply 60 times 2 or times -2, and then they would be able to cancel out. So I'm actually going to do that because that seems like it might be a little bit easier. So I'm going to multiply the top equation times -2. And then I'm going to just rewrite this down here. So I'm multiplying it by -2. That's going to be -120x minus 220y equals 256 times 2. Ms. Lopez can't do math in her head, so let's use a calculator. -512. And then I'm just going to pop the second equation underneath. And now my x's cancel out. And I'm going to add. So -220 plus 90 is 130. And -512 plus 270 is 242. And when I divide both sides by 130, I get y equals 1.86. So I know that the cost for drinks is $1.86. And now what I can do is I can plug that back into one of the original equations. So let's plug it into the original top equation. So 60x plus 110y, but I know y is 1.86, equals 256. 110 times 186 is 204.8. Oops, my bad. Okay, so 60x plus 204.8 equals 256. Subtract that from both sides. I get 60x equals 51.2. And then I divide both sides by 60. And I get x equals 0.85. So each candy bar is $0.85, which would be 85 cents. So that's my final answer. So this would be 0.85. All right, so that's how I did this one. If you decided to try a different way, you should still get the same answer because you could have used elimination, you could have used substitution, you could have tried to cancel out the y's instead of the x's. There were definitely a lot of different ways you could have done it, but either way, you should get 85 cents as your final answer. All right, next up, a lot of word problems today. A restaurant serves a vegetarian and chicken lunch special each day. Each vegetarian special is the same price. Each chicken special is the same price. However, the price of the vegetarian special is different from the price of the chicken special. On Thursday, the restaurant collected $467 selling 21 vegetarian specials and 40 chicken specials. On Friday, the restaurant collected $484 selling 28 vegetarian specials and 36 chicken specials. What is the cost in dollars of each lunch special? So here we actually have to find both. Alrighty, let's do this. So first I set up my equations. So I'm gonna we might as well do V for vegetarian and C for chicken. So for Thursday, I would have 21V plus 40C equals 467. And then for Friday, I would have 28V plus 36C equals 484. Okay. So we don't really have the best numbers in the world to work with, but there is something that I see we could possibly do right away. So I know, I'm just looking at the numbers, and I'm noticing that some of these have factors that are the same. So for example, 21 and 28 are both divisible by 7, and 40 and 36 are both divisible by, they're both factors of 8. Okay, so for vegetarian meals, they're both factors of 7, and for the 40 and the 36, they're both factors of, hold up, not 8, what am I thinking? Of 4. They're both factors of 4. So instead of thinking of a number that you could multiply by that would end up with you having opposites, maybe instead of multiplying, we should divide. So the top equation, let's try and cancel out the v's. So my goal is to cancel those out. So I could divide the top equation by 3, because then I would get 7 for the value of v. And if I want this to be the opposite, if I want this to be -7, well, I would divide this by -4. Let's actually see what happens when we do that. So the top equation, once I do all that work, I'm going to divide by 3. I would get 7v, and then 40 divided by 3 is not going to be a whole number. That's okay, because we're talking about money. So it's okay if it's a fraction or a decimal. So this is 13.3c, and then 467 divided by 3 is 155.7. We're rounding. Actually, you know what? Let's round to the nearest hundredth place, because since we're talking about money, we always want things to have 2 decimal points. So let me go back. 40 divided by 3 is 13.33, and 467 divided by 3 is 155.666667. So I'm going to round this up. This would be 67. All right, so that's my top equation. Now my bottom equation, I'm going to divide the whole thing by -4. So 28 divided by -4 gives me -7v. 36 divided by -4 is -9c. And 484 divided by 4 is 121. 121, nice. We got a couple of and that's negative, a couple of nice numbers. So here we go. The v's cancel out, the 7 v's cancel, and I'm gonna subtract 13.33 minus 9 is 4.33. And then 155.67 minus 121 is 34.67. And now I divide both sides by 4.33. And I get 8. Nice, it actually worked out to be a whole number. So C is 8. So the chicken meal is $8. Now that I know the chicken is $8, I can go back and plug that into one of the original equations. So let me plug it into the top equation. So this would be 21V plus 40 times 8 equals 467. 40 times 8 is 320. So 21V plus 320 equals 467. I subtract 320 from both sides, and I get 147. Now I divide by 21, and I get $7. So vegetarian meal is $7. Okay, so there you go. Real world scenario using a system of equations. It works the same way. It's bigger numbers, but you would have a calculator on the test. So you would just make sure that you plug everything in carefully and do the math carefully and round to the nearest hundredth so that you get a good number at the end. All right. We got another system of equations. Consider this system of equations: 2x plus 5y equals 10 and 6x plus ny equals 5. What would n need to equal for this system to have no solution? Okay, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to ask you question number 3 for the Google form. So in your Google form, go ahead and open it back up and we're going to answer question number 3. Question number 3 is, what is the name of Miss Lopez's kitten? And the answer to that question is, his name is Cosmo. So go ahead and put that in for question number 3. The name of my kitten is Cosmo, C-O-S-M-O. All right, back to this. So we need this to have no solution. And let's remember, when you're solving a system of equations and you end up, you're solving, you have an equal sign, you have some stuff on the left, some stuff on the right, and then you do some steps, and you end up with something like this: 5 equals -2. That's when you would have no solution. So what that would mean is that they don't equal one another, there's no solution. But on a graph, if I graph a system of equations and it has no solutions, that means that the two lines, and you might know this, think about it, if there's no solutions, that means that the two lines are parallel. Okay, so no solution is the same thing as parallel lines. And this is where your geometry knowledge will actually come in handy, because we know that parallel lines have to have the same slope. The same slope. So we need to figure out what is the slope of the top equation, and what would n have to be in order for the second equation to have the same slope as well. Now there's two ways to do this. One way would be to turn this into slope-intercept form. So I would move the 2x over to the other side. So this would be 5y equals -2x plus 10. And then I would divide both sides by 5. So this would be y equals -2/5 x plus 2. So I know that the slope is -2/5. I could do it that way. Or I could remember that in order for them to have the same slope, but a different y-intercept, the two equations, the way that they're written right now, they're in standard form, they would have to almost match, but not enough. So watch. What do we notice? between the 2 and the 6, you would have to multiply that by 3. Between the 10 and the 5, you multiply that by 2. So it's like close, but not quite. Matter of fact, let's actually go back to what I was doing, and I think you guys would understand it better if I did it the way I started to do it before. So I'm going to turn this into slope-intercept form like I did before. So if I move the 2x to the other side, this is how I got negative 2x plus 10, and then I divided both sides by 5, so this is negative 2/5 x plus 10. So again, they need to have the same slope, but a different y-intercept. Okay, so now let's look at the bottom equation. I'm going to move the 6x over, so that would leave me with ny equals negative 6x plus 5. And I would want to divide by n, right? But we don't know what n is yet. However, we know that whatever n ends up being, the slope has to be the same. So negative 6 over n has to be equal to negative 2 over 5. So let me write that down. So I know that negative 6 over n has to be equal to negative 2 over 5. Well, to get from 6 to 2, I divide by 3. So I know that in order for these to match, this would have to be 15. So n would have to equal 15. Now, I'm going to show you what I was doing before I kind of decided against it. Notice, 2 times 3 gives me 6. 5 times 3, that gives me 15. So to go from the top equation to the bottom equation, this is times 3, this is times 3, and then here, does that match? Is that times 3? No, this is times 2. So that's kind of what makes something to have no solutions. It's when the x and the y are factors of each other, but then the actual answer is different. That's why this has no solution, because they don't match all the way through. They only match the x's and the y's. So if that helps you to think about it that way, that might be helpful. Another example, before I confuse you guys too much, because I don't know if that was as helpful as I hoped it would be, let me just give you another example. So for example, let's say I'm just going to make up some numbers. 3x plus 6y equals 12. Let's say that's the first one. Now I'm going to create an equation that has no solution. And I'm going to do that by multiplying times 2, and then times something different, like times, I don't know, let's make this times 5. So this would give me 6x plus 12y equals 60. These two have no solution because the x is a factor, it's 3 times 2. Then the y's are also factors, it's 6 times 2. But then the actual answer, these don't match because this is times 5. So that's kind of the pattern. If you see a question like this come up, that's kind of like the quick way to remember it, is to just follow that pattern that you see going on. All right, so that was this one. Let's keep it going. How many more do we have? Let's see. Okay, 6 more. Let's do it. Now we're moving on to inequalities. So quick reminder for inequalities. We have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and each of those tell us what type of line and how to shade. And we've made this little chart a million times before, so hopefully you guys remember it by now. But this would be a dotted line. This would be solid. Here we shade below. Here we shade above. So here, in this example, I am below, and that looks like a dotted line to me. So if it's below and dotted, I'm looking at this symbol, which means answer choice A and B are out. And then it's just a matter of one of them has positive 3x and one of them has negative 3x, and that's talking about the slope. And the slope of this line is negative. That's a negative slope. So I know that answer choice D is my answer. Next one. Okay, another inequality, but this time it's written in standard form. And anytime that it starts out with standard form, you have to turn it into slope-intercept form because standard form might be deceiving. So let's take a look. So I have 2x minus y is less than 4. I'm going to turn this into slope-intercept form. I'm going to I'm going to move the 2x to the other side by subtracting it. So I have negative y is less than negative 2x plus 4. But this is negative y. I need positive y. So I have to divide both sides by negative 1. Dividing that by negative 1. And remember, when you divide by a negative, the symbol of your inequality is going to switch. It's going to flip around. So this would be y is greater than 2x minus 4. So see how it could be deceiving, because originally it looked like this was going to be a less than sign, so you might have chosen answer choice A or answer choice C because those are below. But once you actually turn it into slope-intercept form, the sign flips. I know it's greater than, so it can't be C and it can't be A. And then in order to figure out my answer, I know that I have a positive slope and the y-intercept is negative 4. And between answer choice B and D, it's definitely going to be D because this is a positive slope and the y-intercept would be negative 4, which would be somewhere down here. Okay, so this is definitely my answer, not B. B is a negative slope, that's why. Cool, next one. Pause here, let me ask you your question number 4 for the Google form. On the Google form, question number 4 is, how many homework problems are you responsible for completing every day this week? How many homework problems are you responsible for completing every day this week? Go ahead and answer it in the Google form. And now go ahead and come back. All right, this is one of my favorite types of problems. Consider the system of inequalities. Select all ordered pairs that are solutions to the system of inequalities. We got 6 coordinate points. We have to plug those in. And in order for it to be a solution, it has to work for both equations when you plug it in. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. I'm going to start with the top equation. And I'm going to plug in negative 10 and negative 3. And it has to be less than 8. Negative 30 plus negative 6. This would be negative 36. That's definitely less than 8. So that works. But now I have to test the other equation as well. So here we go. Negative 5 times negative 10 minus 9 times negative 3. And that has to be greater than or equal to 2. I get 50 plus 9 times 3 is 27. 27. 50 plus 27, that's definitely greater than 2. So that works as well. So first answer choice is in. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do this with every single one of these. And let's just go right through it. I'm not going to do too much speaking. But let's go ahead and test these all out. Here we go. 3 times negative 2 plus 2 times 7 less than 8. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 14, that's going to be 8. 8 is not less than 8. 8 is equal to 8, but 8 is not less. So this does not work. I can automatically cross that one out. Okay, next one. 0, 0. That's easy because I can just plug in zeros. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 is less than 8. Now I plug it into the bottom equation. Zero minus 0 is 0, but 0 is not greater than or equal to 2. So that one's out. Keep it going. Here we go. Now I'm plugging in 1, negative 1. 3 times 1 plus 2 times negative 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. 3 minus 2 is 1, and 1 is less than 8. That's good. Now I plug it into the bottom equation. Negative 5 times 1 minus 9 times negative 1. This would be negative 5. This would be plus 9. Negative 5 plus 9 is 4, and 4 is greater than 2. That works. This one's in. Almost there. Now I'm plugging in 4, negative 2. So 3 times 4 plus 2 times negative 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. 12 minus 4 is 8, but 8 is not less, 8 is not less than 8. So automatically, this one is out. Now I'm down to the last one. Plugging in 8, 9. 3 times 8 plus 2 times 9 less than 8. I can already tell this is probably not going to work, but 24 plus 18 less than 8? I don't think so. Let's see, this is 42. Yeah, definitely not. That one's out. So there you go. I like these types of problems because it's just very like straightforward. You just plug it in, plug it in, plug it in, do the work, do the math, see if it works, done. Okay, but they take time. You do have to do everything. You do have to plug everything in, every possibility until you figure out the ones that work and the ones that don't work. All right, almost there, guys. Here we go. The graph of a system of inequalities is shown. Create the system of inequalities that is represented by the graph. So we have two inequalities. We need to write the equations of those lines. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to highlight it in red. It's a solid line, and I'm shading above that red line. So I know that this is going to be y is greater than or equal to whatever I get. And now in order to know the rest of it, I need to know the slope and I need to know the y-intercept. The y-intercept is negative 5. So I know that b is negative 5. And the slope, I need to pick 2 points and do my rise and run. So I see another point right here. I'm going to do my rise, I'm going to do my run. My rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. And my run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that my slope is 4 over 6, which simplifies to 3, not 3, my bad, 2 over 3. All right, so my slope is 2/3, my y-intercept is negative 5, so my equation or my inequality is going to be y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 5. So that's for the first line, but I have another line, so let's do that one. Okay. I have a dotted line, and it's shading below the dotted line. So I know that this is going to be y is less than whatever I get. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because this is a flat horizontal line. Flat horizontal line. Horizontal lines have zero slope. You can think about Slope Man. Remember Slope Man? And remember how his mouth is flat and there's little zeros at the ends of that mouth? Those zeros, okay, that tells me if I have a flat horizontal line, it has zero slope, which means M is 0 and B, the y-intercept, is -3, 0, -3. So the equation, technically, this would be y is less than 0x minus 3. But 0 times anything is 0, so this would simply be y is less than -3. There it is. That would be my system of inequalities. All right, moving right along. A standard elevator in a medium-rise office building has a maximum capacity of 17 people and can hold a maximum of 2,570 pounds. The average weight of an adult is 195.5 pounds for men and 166.2 for women. Select all of the inequalities that model the I think that should say constraints of the situation where X represents the number of men and Y represents the number of women. Okay. X is men, Y is women. And it tells me that the average weight of an adult is 195 pounds, 0.5 pounds for men and 162.2 for women. And the maximum that the elevator can hold is 2,570 pounds, as well as 17 people. Okay, so there's one equation or inequality that would be for the number of people, and then there's going to be one for the number of pounds, the amount of pounds. So first of all, I know that if I can only have 17 people, the amount of women plus men has to be less than or equal to 17. Okay, so the amount of men and the amount of women has to be less than or equal to 17. Well, X is men and women is Y. So I know that answer choice A, B, C, D, E is correct. All right, then I know that the pounds, the total number of pounds, has to be less than 2,570. Well, I know that men are 195.5. So 195.5 times the number of men plus 166.2 times the number of women has to be less than or equal to 2,570. Okay, so there we go. That's for the weight, and that's answer choice G. But there's a lot more answer choices, so I just want to check what they're saying. Answer choice A is saying that the number of men has to be greater than or equal to 0. Yeah, that makes sense, because the number of men, you can't have negative men. I mean, you could, but no, you really can't. You can't have negative number of people. So this is simply telling you that whatever the amount of men is, it has to be greater than 0. It has to be a positive number, and that's correct. Same thing with women. It's saying that however many women you have on that elevator, it has to be a positive number. It has to be greater than 0. Greater than or equal to 0. So that's fine. C is saying that the number of men has to be less than 100. 95.5 pounds. Well, that doesn't make sense because X represents the number of men, not how much a man weighs. So this is out. That doesn't make sense. And then D is saying that the number of women has to be less than or equal to 17. The number of women has to be less than or equal to 17. Yeah, that makes sense because you can't have more than 17. So that could make sense. However, you just have to make sure that you also checked this one because it also has to be greater than or equal to 0. So that's fine. And then finally, X plus Y is less than or equal to 2,570. That doesn't make sense because this is the number of men plus the number of women has to be less than. So this would be telling me that you could have 2,570 people on that elevator, and that's not true because 2,570 is not the number of people, it's the number of pounds of people. All right, so there were the answers: A, B, D, E, and G. Last two problems, I believe. Yes, all right, so here we go. Joanna has a total of 50 coins in her purse. The coins are either nickels or quarters. The total value of the coins is $7.10. Which system of equations can be used to determine the number of nickels and the number of quarters that Joanna has in her purse? Okay, so she only has nickels and quarters. All right, so I know that she has 50 coins total. 50 coins total. So the number of nickels plus the number of quarters has to be 50. So that's n plus q equals 50. So what can I get rid of? I can get rid of C, and I can get rid of B, and oh wow, I can actually get rid of D as well, because none of those have the correct equation. Now, just to double check, I can also just see if A makes sense. A is saying that 0.5 times the number of nickels, okay, that tracks because nickels are 5 cents, plus 0.25 times the number of quarters, that also tracks because quarters are 25 cents, equals $7.10. That tracks because that's how much she has in her purse. So that was a lot easier than I even expected. Nice. Cool, last one. And before we do the last one, here's your final question for the Google form. So go back to that Google form. Question number 5 is, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is absolutely terrible, I have no idea what I'm doing, and 5 is amazing, I could do algebra all day, every day, I'm going to get a 5 on this EOC. On a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel about the EOC? How prepared do you feel? So 1 is you feel horrible, you're not prepared at all, you're going to fail. And 5 is you feel amazing, you know you're going to do amazingly, you can't wait to take the EOC. So go ahead and tell me, from a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel? And now let's return to this. Here's the last question. Sally works at a store. X represents Sally's monthly paycheck and Y represents her monthly savings. Sally will save at least $20 more than half of her paycheck each month. She can save at most $80 or more, at most $80 more than 2/3 of her paycheck each month. Her paycheck each month is at least $1,200, but no more than $1,850. Okay. I'm going to start with the last bullet point because that seems like the easiest one. So we know that her paycheck is at least 1,200. So the paycheck, by the way, let me highlight everything. Paycheck is X. So it's saying that her paycheck is at least 1,200, but no more than 1,850. And since I know paycheck is represented with the letter X, take a look. Has to be at least 1,200, so it has to be greater than 1,200, but no more than, so less than 1,850. Well, what do I have? Okay, here I see those numbers. 1,200, and 1,850. But some of them work and some of them don't, because I know that this has to be the variable x, so D is out and A is out. And then looking at the variables, or the symbols, I know that it has to be at least 1,200. So that means that 1,200 is the minimum amount. So x has to be greater than or equal to 1,200. I know that 1,850 is the maximum amount. So I know that x has to be less than or equal to 1,850. And lo and behold, where do we see that? Not in answer choice C, but in answer choice B. So I didn't even have to look at those two confusing bullet points, because I was able to figure this out only by matching the last bullet point to the correct answer. All right, so now if you wanted to, you could go on and double check. I know that she will save at least $20 more than half of her paycheck each month. At least means that it has to be greater than, which matches. And then it says that she can save at most $80, more than 2/3 of her paycheck. So I know that at most is the maximum, so that symbol would have to be less than, and that does match, so we're good to go. So I barely even paid attention to those confusing words, like notice all of this, $20 more than half of her paycheck, $80 more than 2/3 of her paycheck. I didn't even pay attention to that, because what was most important was the correct symbol. Everything else was the same in every answer choice. So it was the symbol that mattered the most. And that is it, you guys. So thank you for sticking through this. I hope that you were able to complete each problem. I hope that you got to it. Don't forget that you do have homework. So I don't know how long I've been talking, but if you still have time in class right now, go ahead and go work on a few problems so that you get those done before you go home today. And don't forget to finish all 10 by the end of tonight. So as a reminder, you have to do 10 homework problems every day, and I will be grading them on completion and correctness. So have a good rest of your days. I will definitely see you guys tomorrow. I missed you guys today, but I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow.